Welcome to the Sacred Skeptics Podcast. Only two things are required to be a sacred skeptic: the humility to say, I could be wrong, and the courage to follow the truth, wherever it leads. Dealing with current events, cultural issues, and spiritual questions. Here are your hosts, Rick Henderson and Mike Bell.
All right, welcome to the show where we like to engage current events, cultural issues, and spiritual questions. In this episode, we're going to double back and engage some of the responses to last week's episode, Misunderstood. But the majority of our time is going to be focused on Sarah Bessey's trending hashtag, Things Only Christian Women Hear. But before we get to that, what I want to do is I want to welcome in a couple of guest co-hosts. Mike Bell is out of studio this week, and I'm glad to welcome in Becky Bruce. Becky, welcome to the show.
Hi, I am KSL News Radio's digital content producer. So those of you who watched our video episode last week might have noticed me making fun of Mike and Rick in the background for being an all-man show talking about women's issues.
Yes.
I'm also a Christian. I was baptized at age 7. Went through that doubting period like a lot of people do in college, and then I found Jesus again, and I've never looked back.
Hey, so as we're talking about this issue from a woman's perspective, you're going to add a lot of richness today, and you're not just like a spectator to the Christian world. You've been involved in it your whole life, and you've been involved in the professional world of broadcasting and media, and so I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, and maybe shine a light on some blind spots or some things that I just haven't been aware of. And also, we're glad to welcome back Rob Lambert, who previously was a guest co-host with us. Rob, welcome to the show.
It's always good to be here. Always good to be here.
What do you add? Becky brings a lot to the table. What do you bring today?
No pressure. No pressure.
That is a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Okay. Hey, just feel free to play along and jump in.
Commit to the bit.
All right. Hey, we always like to start off with a quote of the week, and this week it comes from Augustine, who lived in the 4th century in North Africa. He said this: "A thing is not necessarily true because badly uttered, nor false because spoken magnificently." And that really jumped out at me because, well, one, I think people expect to hear that backwards. Hey, just because something's spoken badly doesn't mean it's false, or just because something's spoken well doesn't mean that it's true. And my question was, which is more important, how something is said or what is said? What's your response to that question? How it's said or what it's said?
Ladies first.
Okay. I'm going to confess to a sin here. This has been a lifelong struggle for me, to take people with the meaning of their words and not how it's said. Mm-hmm. So I still, as an adult now, I am staring down 42, yikes. I still struggle with tone of voice versus actual content, mm-hmm. and discerning the difference. So I'm probably not a good person to ask.
Okay. You know what? It was interesting to throw the question out there, and one person said they're both equally important, and I want to agree with them, and then I go back and forth on this, and the context isn't really like, do you say it meanly or do you say it nicely? It's, do you say it well or do you not talk good? And I know you're from Kentucky. You probably appreciated that, Becky. I'm from the South as well, although I try not to sound like it. But you don't sound like it.
It's a wall of
I might just be. This might be getting worse. I just might need to back away.
Yeah, you probably should. It's one of those things. Like, if Kentucky is your mama.
Yeah.
You can make fun of it, but when other people do, oh man, fists are out.
Okay. All right. I'm backing. Okay. I'm backing away.
Just
I'm
let
California.
You know.
I don't have to worry about it. So
stupid California.
I'm backing away. But but I know that there are people who have this sense that, hey, it's more authentic if it doesn't sound polished, and if it does sound polished, then it sounds fake. And so, me being a pastor and speaking to literally dozens of people every weekend, I'm trying to communicate well, but I also want it to feel like people are a part of a conversation. And so anyway, my desire is to really lean in to what people say and really what they mean, and then treat how they say it important, but not as all important. Rob, you got any thoughts on that?
You know, personally, the way that I look at it is that what they say is by far way more important. I think that how you say it is sort of the wrapping paper that you put on it, and you kind of, maybe it helps to know your audience a little bit and decide, what wrapping you need to put on it. But at the end of the day, I mean, what you're saying is, to me at least, is so much more important than, what kind of bow you put on it.
Okay. Hey, well, let's double back and just real quick, I want to give maybe 3-4 minutes to talking about last week's episode, especially part 2 of Misunderstood. And wouldn't you know it, no surprise here, we were misunderstood.
Do you understand the words that are coming out from my mouth?
Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
That's exactly how I felt.
Wow.
Shimoli.
Oh, man. Whatever happened to Chris Tucker?
I told you, man, he got caught in traffic.
Man, he is so funny. I love that movie. Him and Jackie Chan.
That was a rush hour joke. Hey.
Hey,
I
anyway,
see what you did there.
there's a lot of misunderstanding going on, and I don't want to jump into that too much. We've got a great conversation happening right now with a couple of people weighing in on our Facebook page, and so hey, we can't say everything we want to say in one episode. We let the conversation continue on social media. We'd love for you to be a part of that, but I do want to reference a couple of things. Kate wrote in and she said, "Hey guys, that was a great podcast, except for one thing. I don't want to be nitpicking, but you used the word retarded as an insult. There are actual people who are mentally retarded, and it's kind of disrespectful to use that to describe people who are just idiots. Also, you just sound like a middle schooler when you say that. You're all too smart. Please don't do that anymore."
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair.
That's a little wrist slapperoonie right there.
Yeah, got a little smack from Kate. And Kate, I'm just going to say, you're right. I was wrong. I apologize.
Whoa, can you say that again for the recording?
Hey, can I just say, this is not the first time I've admitted to being wrong. I think the first thing that I said to Sarah Bessie when she came on the show was, I was wrong. You showed me that I was wrong about something. But anyway, I was wrong. And it doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened just now. All right. Hey, here's another thing that's that kind of interestingly happened. Someone wrote this: verbal abuse is real and it's significant. It does not lose its significance because it's not like getting punched in the face or anything. It should not be diminished because it's not something else. Physical abuse is not a greater form of abuse. They're both horrific. Neither should be tolerated. And I just want to say I agree that physical abuse and verbal abuse are both bad, unacceptable, should not be tolerated. Not my intent to say, hey, if you're just getting verbally abused, then that's not a big deal as long as you're not getting hit, learn to live with it. That's not what we said. That's not what we meant. And if you want to know more about that, you can jump on the Facebook page.
Can I just say for the record, though?
Yeah.
I would much rather be told that I'm ugly than actually be punched in the face by someone. So I just want to throw that out there.
You can throw that out there.
Just wanna
Okay.
throw
Whoa.
You can throw that out there.
Okay. Somebody just jumped right into that debate.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Oh, have you been to the Facebook page?
Yes, I have. I did read through the
today?
comments and all that stuff. Maybe not today.
Yeah.
Not this morning.
Hey, if we're talking about one instance, maybe. But when
Yeah.
people are talking about an ongoing instance, like this is your lifestyle, this is what you grow up in, is it different, Becky?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of context here. And this is not something I talk about a lot, but I'm perfectly happy to talk about it. I grew up in a situation where my parents got divorced when I was 9. And my mom remarried when I was about 11. And it was an abusive relationship, at least for the first several years. I'll explain the redemptive part to that. I believe that our situation is the exception.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and not the rule. I have a relationship with my stepdad today.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
But my situation is the exception. I think most abusive relationships don't have this kind of happy ending. He didn't physically abuse my mom, but he gaslighted her, And if you're not familiar with that term, what I mean is that nothing was his fault.
Yeah.
Everything was our fault. And we believed it, right? Not only did we believe it, but at a certain point, Christian counseling came into the picture for the two of them as newlyweds. And man, he was a charmer and a sweet talker, and he had that Christian counselor convinced that he was a fine, upstanding man just trying to do the best thing for the family and that there was nothing to see here. Later on, things escalated, and my sister and my biological father tried to have me removed from that situation by involving Child and Family Services, where I grew up. He sweet-talked those people, too.
Wow.
Holy moly.
Right? So I think you have to understand that in an abusive situation, there's a mentality for the abused. It's called learned helplessness. My mom was very much in that kind of a situation. She just honestly did not see a way out. It's not that she didn't, have the ability to leave. She could have, but she felt trapped. And if you feel trapped, the bars are just as real than if you're not trapped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing that you have to understand about the abuser, a lot of domestic abusers are really charismatic people. And they have a face that they present to the outside world, and they have a face that they present at home.
Yeah. So
what's presented to you as a pastor may not be what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, this was a man who was well respected in our church. Now, here's the redemptive part of our story.
Yeah.
My stepdad was diagnosed with manic depression, bipolar disease. He got treatment. He worshiped the ground my mother walked on after that.
Really?
I've never seen a situation like that where somebody got medication, started seeing a counselor for real, no longer being a charismatic show, and turned things around. That is the exception. If you really are in a situation where you feel you were trapped and you're trying to get help, I would hate for you to hear a conversation like we've had today where we're like, well, I'd rather, be called ugly than hit in the face, and think that we are diminishing your pain.
Sure. Sure.
And just to be clear, I'm talking about like if I run into a dude on the street. I'm not talking about in my house.
So you got to understand, Rob, you're referencing a one-time instance. If it's a one-time trade-off, I would rather verbal abuse than physical abuse in a one-time instance. Hear me on that.
Absolutely.
One-time instance. If you're talking about ongoing, the cost, the ongoing effect and impact and devastation of verbal abuse can be more devastating than physical abuse.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes it's easier to heal from physical bruises than from the internal and mental and emotional bruises that come from that kind of abuse. Beck, is that a fair way?
I think that's
to describe
fair.
that?
And I guess all I'm getting at is, can you see where somebody who's been in that background would have heard what you said last week or read your posts about it?
Yeah.
And had the reaction that they did.
Absolutely. I can absolutely understand that. And I tried to extend the olive branch towards the end of the show when I said, listen, if you've had this experience in the past, I expect you to assume the worst about what I'm saying. If you've had this experience in the past, I expect you to misunderstand me. I'm not even trying to change your perspective. I just want to get to the point where you can say, maybe there's more pieces to the puzzle than what I've seen. That's the only thing. That was my goal. That might have been too ambitious of a goal. Hey, if you read Psychology Today, they'll tell you that yelling to someone, shut up, is verbal abuse. And that's abusive behavior. And I'll say, okay, great. I've got not great to do that, but hey, great as in I accept that. No question. I accept that uncritically. But here's the deal. If that is the case, who is not technically guilty of abuse? Everyone at some point in their life are guilty of making a negative defining statement about someone else. Everyone at some point in their life are guilty of creating mental and emotional anguish in someone else. And there has to be some nuance in how we approach that. There's not nuance in acceptability, but there is nuance in response. And if you want to know more about that, you should go check out our Facebook page. Becky, I'll give you the last word on this subject.
If you are in a situation and it doesn't feel right and you feel trapped, I just want you to know that you are free to leave.
Yes.
And if you need help, ask for it.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be at home.
Yes.
The next time you're out in public, it doesn't matter. Ask somebody for help. I guarantee there is help for you.
Absolutely. Hey, with that, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're excited to jump in to the hashtags, things that only Christian women hear.
Thank you for listening to the Sacred Skeptics Podcast. Visit our website, sacredskeptics.com, and interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.